Welcome to Fertilish, the podcast where we get real about fertility, infertility, and everything in between. I'm Laura.
And I'm Brandis. And whether you're knee-deep in treatments, just starting to ask questions, or somewhere in the ish of it all, you're in the right place.
Here we ditch the stigma, break down the science, and have candid conversations about the messy, emotional, and sometimes hilarious journey to growing a family and preserving your fertility.
So grab your coffee, your meds, or just your curiosity, and let's get into it. All right, so we are on episode number 8 of Fertilish Podcast.
Yeah, and today is going to be a little bit of a different feel than our previous podcast. Obviously, we've talked about the emotional implications of IVF, but we're going to do a deep dive into the emotional effects of fertility treatment, infertility, IVF, how it can affect you, how it can affect your partner if you're going through treatment with a partner or you're experiencing this with a partner, and what we suggest to do to help.
Yeah, and I know, I've talked about this a little bit before. I haven't experienced infertility per se. I have been through part of the IVF process with egg freezing. So, there are parts I can relate to. And you've been through IVF and you work in IVF. So, I'm sure you can relate really well to a lot of people.
Yeah, I think, having a child from a previous relationship that we had no, problems conceiving whatsoever. I never considered, experiencing pregnancy loss. Very naively, just went into trying to conceive, and with my husband and never really considered, that may be an issue for us. And so I certainly never expected to, have recurrent pregnancy loss or, need fertility treatment. That was not on my radar whatsoever. Yeah. And so I think that it happened without expectation and kind of quickly. It seemed like it happened quickly, that we went from, pregnancy loss to fertility treatment. And we started out with, ovulation induction, timed medicated cycles, moved on to IVF, kind of skipped over IUI. And I underestimated, I guess, how it would affect our relationship. And so, I think we both were struggling separately, and not knowing how to struggle together. And it led to additional heartache, between the two of us. And thankfully, we were able to, get into therapy together. And we had a great therapist who helped us to navigate those issues, gave us some tools that we still use to this day. Do we navigate it perfectly? Absolutely not. We're still learning each other and learning how to be there for each other. And do we always say the right things to each other? Absolutely not. Me especially, I can be a real jerk sometimes. So, but I think that we're better prepared to lean into each other now than we were before. I think that one thing that we really learned, was how to take time for us, regardless of what was going on with fertility treatment, regardless of societal pressure, regardless of family members asking us well, when are you going to start again? Or when are you going to do this? Or whatever, when are you going to have a baby? We've been able to just be F off, this is our journey. And we're maybe we need a few months, maybe we need a few months to go on several dates. I can have several cocktails with my husband.
Yeah.
We can have a good time. We can go to brunch and have mimosas, whatever it is. I think that we've learned that at the end of the day, that's the most important part. And why we're even doing this in the beginning is because us, like, so, I'm really glad that like those are tools that we've brought into like, and, we're getting ready to start another cycle for egg retrieval. We still have an embryo that's frozen, but we want to, we want to create some more embryos before we transfer again. And, we've like taken some time off and we've done that. Like we've really like kind of paid attention to each other's needs. And there's this like, ugh, I'm not ready to do this again. Like feeling, but it's like when you get to it, it's like, okay, cool. Like, all right, now I'm on top of it, making sure like taking all my supplements, doing all my things, like eating better.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's definitely like a mindset that you have to get into. And so we've learned that too, like we're, through the process. But yeah, I went into IVF thinking like, oh, we're going to do IVF. Like it's going to work. And that was it. And then, life was like, huh, well, that's not really actually what's going to happen. But
yeah. And, it's hard, like I said before, it's just like you're kind of grieving something, a life that you thought you'd have according to this perfect timeline that you thought. And, no one ever says when you're growing up, hey, it might actually be hard to get pregnant. Right. And then in your mind, it's like, all right, I'm going to have one at 30, one at 32, or however your timeline is. And it doesn't always work out that way. And so, not only is that likely hard, but then you do this treatment and, maybe those aren't going according to your timeline either. I have so many patients that are like, so what's the timeline for this? When can I expect to be pregnant? And I'm like,
gosh, yes.
No, I'm not even going there.
Get rid of that word.
Yeah, we're just gonna. And I'm like, and they're like, okay, well, I get it, but like, if everything goes perfectly, and I'm like, I don't even. No.
I can tell you the timeline for when you can expect to like have a consultation.
Yeah.
I can tell you the timeline for if you're ready when you can start treatment, which is pretty quickly after your consultation. But everything after that, like. It could
vary.
Be a whole
you might need multiple retrievals. You might need and a lot of times, and I always, when Dr. Fink was here, I always used to joke with him. I'm like, dude, I get the bad rap because to me, it's so important to manage expectations because I have anxiety, and I know that if my expectations aren't managed, like. It's hard for me to like not know what's going to happen or what could happen or all the things. And he does the same. He just does it in a different way. He'll like tell you a joke and then tell you. So and I'm like I'm so like honest with people and like guiding them and how I feel like this journey is and that way if something doesn't work out, you're not super let down, you're not devastated. And
I think that's so important, Brandis, because I think that like so many people don't get that, and then they like there are these expectations, and it leads to additional hurt. Additional disappointment, additional grief that, like you said, we could have possibly managed. Like, not that it's not going to still be there.
Yeah.
Like, anytime a transfer doesn't work or anytime that you didn't, get what you hoped for in your egg retrieval or anytime, whatever. Like, comparison is a thief of joy. Like, anytime we're comparing ourselves to someone else's experience, like, there's always going to be grief, disappointment, anger, guilt, like, all the things. Yeah. But, no, I think you're exactly right. Like, and I'm saying that from, like, a patient perspective. Like, I definitely prefer to like, okay, well, what's worst case scenario here?
Yeah.
And then hope for like something better, like expect the worst, prepare for the worst, hope for the best, whatever that saying is. Like, I think that it's important to know, like, what are all the ranges of like.
What could happen and, even with, I have follow-up talks all the time and sometimes I'll get on the phone and it's like, oh, hi, how, I see we're following up after this. And it's just sobbing. And, they had done a euploid, so a normal embryo transfer, and it didn't work, and it was their first one. And it's like, oh, that is like such a normal thing that can happen, and it's not you.
Yeah.
Like, nothing you did caused this, or, like, it's just such a normal part of the process that's just part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, why didn't anyone tell me that?
Yeah.
And it's like, I thought we did the testing, so it had to work.
Right.
And
that's
it's
right.
like, no, this is normal. Like, I don't expect everyone to work, And I think, like I said, I just think people think, it's IVF, it has to work.
Yeah.
Or I have a normal embryo, it's going to implant. And if it didn't, is it because I didn't have a pineapple smoothie and I didn't eat the fries after the transfer?
Yes. Like the guilt that we put on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like for men and women, it's different, right? Like, if you're in a heterosexual couple and you are going through treatment with your partner and, your experience is going to be very different than your partner's experience. Similarly, if you're in like a same-sex couple, there's a variety of different emotions that each partner could experience as well. Like if, let's say you're in a female same-sex couple, like is one person doing the egg retrieval, like is the guilt from that, like, and it's just important or did one person transfer? Like my husband, he was convinced for a period of time that he had done something to like deserve this, and so this was like his karma for something. And I like finally just had to look at him one day, and I was like kind of an asshole about it, but I was just like, look, karma is not real, and let me tell you why.
Yeah.
Because why are there innocent newborn brand like perfect babies, angels that come into this world and die hours later? Like, why do children have, terminal cancer? Like, why, like, they didn't do something to deserve
karma,
that.
Yeah.
Right. Like, horrible things happen to really good people. And really great things happen to very terrible people. So, like, I just can't believe in that. Like, it's not something that I can believe in because I've just, like, seen both sides of that so many different times, whether that's, like, in my personal life, in my professional life, in the media, whatever it is. Like, I mean, really bad things happen to really good people. And so, I mean, I just was like, stop that. Like, we're doing away with that today. And so since then, I've heard him say so many times, like, when somebody says something like, "Oh, I don't believe in karma anymore." Like, okay.
Oh,
but it really changed his outlook because he had put so much pressure, and but I think that he just needed somebody to like form that in a different way because he had put so much pressure on himself, thinking that like for some reason, he was somehow deserving of, experiencing these pregnancy losses, and it was something that he had done was causing us to go through this. And I was just like, no, like enough of that. Like that's not what's happening.
Well, and I've seen, people blame themselves, and I've seen it the other way too. I've had talks with people where, one person of the couple will get on the phone and it's like, well, they're not taking these supplements, or, he still smokes weed every now and then, and it's like this blaming fight game, and it's like, oh, no, like this is,
and it'll rip your entire relationship apart.
Oh yeah, and we see that, and that's hard. And then we have people who are still, doing the ovulation induction with timed intercourse, and it's like, we don't even want to like have sex anymore.
Right.
Like, this isn't fun. Like, it used to be, we thought, okay, it's going to be fun, that we could try.
Well, we're trying, yeah.
And then it became this like, all right, I'm ovulating, come home, or, it has to be 6 days straight for these days, or
it's very transactional.
Yeah. And, people say it's just not fun anymore.
Yeah.
It's made everything not fun in our relationship. We fight. And so I think when you bring up therapy, I think that's such a good point for people to kind of either do or keep in the back of their mind to maybe think about.
Yeah. I mean, our therapist even like went back and was like he like, so I really thought it was important for my husband to have a male therapist. And because I felt like, I was just like, not that my husband is misogynistic at all, but I just felt like it was like more relatable for him because I was a little bit more open to therapy just in the beginning. He became more open to it, but he was just like, I don't know about this, but if that's what you really want to do, okay. It took a little bit of like, hey, like, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
But, so our therapist was like, even like went back to the beginning, like our very first date, like, like asking him like, well, what did you think when you first saw her? Like, and then he like described his emotions of what he thought about me when he first, like met me, or what I was wearing, or like, and just the way that he was like talking to the therapist about, I was just like, oh wow, like, I don't know, it invoked a lot of emotions that I was just like, this is like why we're together. This is like why we're great together. This is like why we're a team. We like did all the tests about our love language, and like how making sure that we're like meeting each other's needs, and how we like receive love best, and how we give love, and anyways, I just feel like that it's just, I mean, not even if you're just like going through fertility treatment or experiencing infertility, but I think it's great for every couple to experience that. But yeah, I think that it's really important whenever you're going through any like grieving process to take some time for yourself, make room for like some healing. And as part of that, whether that's individually or as a couple, or even as a family, like to receive some specialized like assistance in that healing process.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, even when people bring up acupuncture, sometimes I'll say, hey, needles like terrify me. Is this going to make or break my cycle? And it's like, honestly, just find something that's going to help with stress.
Right.
Whether that's yoga, going for a walk with a friend. I live in Pueblo, so it's like 40 minutes from the Colorado Springs Clinic, but I like to go for walks at the Riverwalk. I like to walk my dog. One thing, and I was actually going to make an Instagram video about it, that I discovered and I think would be really cool, even people doing this process, is I journal sometimes, and occasionally it's fun to like look back and like read from like a breakup from freshman year, and it's like, look how devastated I was, like how dumb, but like in that moment,
yeah.
like it was so real.
Oh, absolutely.
And like to go back and read through phases of life is so cool. And there's this, I don't know if you've seen those, like you could send a picture from your phone to this like a printer. And I got one for my birthday called the Canon IV2, and it prints on paper, and then it's actually a sticker too. So I started, and they're like little like squares. And I started printing those off of like random things I would talk about when I would journal, and I'd put a picture. So now it's more like a scrapbook, but I'm like, how cool to go look back on that.
Yeah.
And then there were TikTok videos of people being like, my baby was just born, and here's my journal that I'm going to give to them on their 18th birthday of like their life. And in my head, I'm like, how cool would that be if like you're going through IVF or fertility treatments, and you take a picture of the day of your egg retrieval and document how you felt that day, or, different things. And then to be able to like look back on that one day and be like, wow, we went through all of this. And like, I just think it's such a cool thing to be able to like look back on, and it's a form of like stress relief too.
Absolutely. So I did have some listener stories that I wanted to kind of read today. I appreciate people just like being willing to share with us kind of their own personal experiences, and being willing to share with others in hopes that it may make others feel like, hey, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
So the first one says, everyone around me is getting pregnant without even trying. My sister announced her second baby at brunch, and I had to excuse myself to cry in the bathroom. I feel like I'm falling behind in life, like I'm stuck and everyone else is moving forward. I hate that I feel jealous, and then I feel guilty for being jealous. It's a constant loop.
Oh, yeah. And I think that is such like a resounding feeling by so many people, is it's like, oh, my sister is pregnant, my friend. And it's so hard to be happy for somebody, but also, try and say you're happy for somebody
Yeah.
when you just want to cry, or when you're angry, and it's not that you're angry with that person, but seeing other people experience what you want, and especially when it's not on the timeline that you thought you would be at this point, is so hard. And I feel like so many people say that all the time, and with things like Mother's Day and brunches and going with friends and people announcing things like that. I feel like it gets hard, and especially as you get older, around the age where people are trying to get pregnant.
Well, and social media too, I mean, I feel like that, like, when you're going through this, you open social media and it's like everywhere I turn, there's a new pregnancy announcement, a baby shower, photos of the baby shower, someone announcing someone else, like a mother-in-law or a mother, like, announcing that they're going to be a grandmother. I mean, it's just like so many different nuances. Every commercial that comes on TV, it feels like it's like centered around that. I'll never forget, like, when we started going through this, my husband was like, Big Brother is really listening, because I have never seen so many pregnancy test commercials in my entire life. Like, every show we were watching, didn't matter if it was like ESPN, like, how is there a clear blue commercial that comes on? So it just, like, it feels like it's like, more than ever, like, I mean, obviously you're going through it, so you notice it. And, or a diaper commercial with a little baby, So it just feels like it's suffocating, I think.
Oh, yeah. And then I feel like the more, going through IVF and even working in it, you search like hashtags IVF, hashtag trying to conceive, just to see what's out there. And I feel like I started following these people, and now I see so many pregnancy announcements just because of that community. And I feel like, sometimes people even start the process with someone, and then their friend gets pregnant, and they started this process together, but now the other one's behind. And so that gets especially hard, especially when you start this process with somebody. And I think being able to know that, one, it's a highlight reel of social media is, and to be able to, like, shut that down, maybe even unfollow people or mute them so that way you don't have to see it, or tell them, hey, I'm doing this not because I'm not happy for you, but it just, my feelings are mixed right now, and so it's hard for me to kind of manage that. And like we've talked about, therapy and having somebody to talk to is really helpful for things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that, like, as you go through this process, if you're going through with a partner, obviously you're going to experience it differently than your partner is. And so, like, their needs, to either talk about it or not talk about it, like, for me, it's very healing to talk about it. And, again, kind of going back to, like, one of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast, but, my husband, he's like, we can talk about it together, but, like, at a certain point, he's like, I just, like, kind of, like, need to watch basketball right now.
Yeah.
Like, that's my outlet. Or football, whatever season it is. Like, so, and he's, like, he's gotten better about being transparent, with, like, family members, like, close family members. But, it's not, like, it's definitely not his, like, favorite thing to talk about outside of us, right?
Yeah.
So, like, but me, it's, like, it's something that I need, and it makes me feel good. And, like, even before I worked in fertility, I was constantly, like, in groups, like, talking to people there, or I had made, like, some really good friends, and some of them I've even met in person, and we've, like, kind of done part of our journey together, and now, like, one of my really good friends, like, she has a baby now, and I've met her baby, and so like, he just processes it different, and so I think that's really important to acknowledge that, like, you're communicating effectively with your partner about, like, hey, what are your needs, and these are my needs, and, like, this is what's healing for me, like, what's healing for you, and so that way you're, like, you find a happy balance, or not a happy balance, but a balance of, like, what you both need from the process.
Yeah, and I've had so many patients here to talk about, dynamics in relationships because of this process. And some people will say, sometimes my husband says that he doesn't even know how to support me through this anymore because I'm struggling so much. And I think there is a component of it to women, especially that maybe partners don't understand as much, is that like I've heard it explained as, it feels like I'm not fully a woman sometimes, or it feels like it takes away part of that from womanhood from me. And I feel like, too, that's something that's hard for partners to understand. So having female support, I think, is important, and not, outside of your partner, being able to vent to people that understand for sure.
Absolutely. And on that same token, I think that it's hard for like a male partner to know because, I mean, historically, males are just like a kind of accustomed to being like the fixer. Like, how do you need me to fix this? I know my husband, like, not even infertility, but he's always like offering suggestions to like fix whatever problem it is. And sometimes I have to just say, like, babe, I don't need you to fix this. Like, I just want to complain right now. Like,
Yeah.
Like, sometimes I just need to vent. But, they want to protect, and then I think that they feel helpless because they're like, I don't know how to fix this. And so, it's hard for them as well, like going through it because they see you hurting. Obviously, they're hurting too. They're trying to be strong, but they want to fix it. But it's like, how do I? And so, yeah, I think that like just the processes of understanding, and then too, I think that like, when you see a couple going through infertility, I think naturally it's like, well, how's she doing? And, and so I think that it's important to acknowledge, and I've been guilty of like not doing this. I've been like internalizing it and been like, oh my gosh, woe is me. And then, it occurs to me like, oh, my husband's going through this with me. Like, maybe I need to check on him. Like, you okay?
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that, is common, especially to internalize things. And some people don't share their journey at all.
Right.
Because of family that, is just doesn't know about it. They don't want to share, or is judgmental about the process.
Yeah.
I know we have resources through CNY. I think we have Fertile Hope Yoga that one of our coworkers, Erin, runs. She does Zoom, so if you're not, I think, is she based in New York?
Yeah.
So then, if you're not in New York, you can do Zoom. They have group sessions. They're like, I don't even think it's therapy. I think it's just like a support group that you can talk to other patients, if I know right.
Yeah, there's like one-on-one, and then there's like group support. Something that I found really helpful in that is, so I think I've talked about in a previous episode, like, I really kind of got into the acupuncture thing, with fertility. And so even like there's an app with Fertile Hope Yoga that you can listen to like meditations, and it's Erin's voice. And so like hearing her voice in those meditations is a little bit different because it's, softer than like you speak every day. Anyways, in my last transfer, I was like listening to Erin's little voice while I was getting acupuncture. It was so relaxing.
Yeah.
And so that's like part of it. And there's like a lot of different components to like what she offers with Fertile Hope Yoga that I feel like that a lot of people would find useful for sure.
Yeah, see, and if that's that's something that if you're not ready to talk to your family or even your friends about it, like we have resources. I know I see always stuff on Instagram about like, oh, I'm a IVF, we do groups and we meet up, we have support groups. So I know that's kind of a big thing. Like we talked about journaling, exercise, coming to transfer with fun socks and a shirt and music that you want to listen to. There are so many ways to kind of manage the emotional impact of IVF that I think it's important to know that you don't have to like go through this alone.
Yeah.
There's so much out there for support.
And you can make the journey yours, like what it, like, just kind of discovering along the way, like what is it that you need, and how do you feel best supported? And there's so many different things that you can kind of, actively participate in or take on, try. I know like one of my big things is like the acupuncture thing, but like these meditations that I have. And so I have like a playlist on Spotify that I share frequently with other fertility patients, and they may be like, this is not for me, but it's something that like if they do like, or then they have it there. You know?
Well, and we'll have to talk to her and maybe have her on, but one of the ladies that I met at ASRM she went through IVF and she went through all these treatments. They didn't end up getting pregnant, never having a baby. And now she even wrote a book, but now she talks about like what happens when IVF doesn't go as planned.
Yeah.
And she has get-togethers for even like Mother's Day, and they call it Others Day, and they hang out and have Others Day brunch. And I think I saw her do something for Halloween where they all went out together, and it's like, even if you're still going through the process and, these holidays and different things can make it hard,
Yeah.
there are groups that do things together that also get it. So I think, that's important to know, too, that those things are out there.
Absolutely. That is a very good point. Regardless of like, whether if you're still trying and you haven't gotten to the place to where you hope to be, or if you've kind of gotten to the place where you're like, hey, like, I think that this part of our journey has come to an end, and this, new journey is beginning. That regardless of whatever phase you're in of the journey or starting a new journey, that there are other people out there that, are in similar situations, and that you guys can offer support to one another in ways that are like fruitful to you.
Oh, yeah. And, sometimes it's not always you grow up with friends that you've had since middle school or high school or even as adults. And I hear people say, my friends got married, they had babies, and now I don't have much in common with them anymore, or it's hurtful to go over there. And so building a community of your own through the IVF or trying to conceive community, I feel like is important.
Absolutely. And kind of like cherry picking like what feels best to you, and being able to like block out like the things that don't feel good, setting boundaries for yourself. Like you said earlier, like, do I need to like mute somebody on social media, or do I need to unfollow them for a period? Like, you don't have to block them or anything. Like, you can still, they don't even have to know, right?
Yeah.
So like, but it's like, hey, like I just need a break. And I've had to do that with like, during like in intervals where we were like taking a break from fertility treatment. I have unfollowed every like fertility Facebook group. I'm still a member, but like I like unfollowed it because I was like, I need something else in my timeline, other than anything fertility related, or other, I just needed a break. Like, I think that's healthy, to take a break. And like, if that is what feels good to you, if that's what you need to do to distract yourself and like actively take a break, like, not just physically, but mentally, then that is what you should do. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, we've had, my husband and I've had periods of time where we were like, okay, like for the next 7 days, we're not going to say anything about fertility. Like, we're like legit on a break,
Yeah. I think it was actually in a book. It was like In Freakin' Fertility that that's kind of talked about, and patients have even said, yeah, we take breaks where we don't talk about it. We go on dates.
Yes.
Even sex, if we decide to do that, it's not going to be to conceive.
No, it's just for fun.
Yeah. And so, that's important. I think relationship obviously wise as well, because it can take a toll.
Yeah. And I mean, working on your intimacy and like kind of remembering like why you even started this process in the beginning. And it was because the two of you, like, and the love you share for one another and the desire to like, have a family together. Like, that is important to like remember like your foundation, and just make sure that your foundation is still solid, because and if there are some cracks, like, be able to like, focus on like, this is why I love this person, there's not a whole lot more in this world that I love than like just having fun with my husband, like that's,
And I think you brought up couples therapy before as like a good tool for people. And I think, having a third person that specializes in this stuff that can kind of say, well, maybe this is how this person needs supported, and vice versa. I think that's such a good tool to have.
Absolutely. And, even beyond that, like, the couples therapist that my husband and I saw, like, he was like even making us go back and like, like remember like our first date. And he was like, asking my husband, like, well, what did she have on? Like, what was, what did you think when you first like, met her on your first date or whatever? And he was describing it in a way that I had never even heard him like talk about him. And I was like, oh my my gosh, like, it just made me feel so good, you know?
Yeah.
And my husband's, like, really, like, generous with words normally anyways, but it was, like, even deeper that, you know, it just, like, gave us, like, you know, it reinvigorated our relationship.
Yeah.
So even, like, beyond the fertility aspect, like, just remembering, like, this is our why. Like, this is why we're doing this, is because of us and our love
Yeah.
for one another.
Yeah, and I think we touched on, you know, a lot of things as far as ways to cope, ways to make this journey your own, how to kind of strengthen things with your partner when things get hard. Was there anything else you kind of wanted to touch on things that helped, or maybe things we haven't got to?
I think that, like, I just would love to reemphasize, like, creating boundaries for yourself, like, whatever that is, whether that's a physical boundary, you know, an emotional boundary, like, boundaries with other people in relationships. So, you know, like, if it's a boundary of, like, hey, I've, like, really, like, been on this strict diet and I'm taking a break and, you know, like, forgive me, Dr. Kiltz, but, like, I'm gonna, like, you know, kind of eat like crap for a week
Yeah.
or two.
Yeah.
And, like, be like, you know, and treat myself to, like, the things that I have not been, you know, partaking in. Like, I'm going to get Starbucks twice a day or
Yeah.
whatever it is, you know, like, if that needs to be a boundary for you, like, so
Yeah.
that way that it gives you some momentum to, like, get to whatever phase is, you know, next, whatever that may be, like, do that.
Yeah.
If it's, you know, like, taking a break from social media altogether, like, do that. If it's even taking a break from certain people in your life, you know, there's a way to, like, respectfully say, like, hey, like, I love you, but, like, I just have to take some me time right now.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody, like, that, you know, genuinely
Oh,
cares
yeah.
about you, like, they're going to understand, like, hey, like, they've been through a really hard process, and, you know, they just have to, like, you know, it's healthy for anybody, whatever stage of your life, to take some time for yourself. Like, you can't be there for others unless, you
Yeah.
know, it's like the adage about putting your own oxygen mask on first. So, whatever those boundaries look like, I, you know, really encourage you
Yeah.
to kind of figure out what works best for you and to set those boundaries in place.
Oh yeah, and that's okay. And there's no, you know, there's no normal way, I don't
Right.
think, to handle this or go through this process. And, you know, us working here know that. And, you know, there are so many days when like, someone gets their positive beta and you're celebrating with somebody, and then in clinic we have, you know, a have to verify a miscarriage, and that's my least favorite thing that I do here. And then you go, you know, back upstairs and somebody has embryo transfer, and so it's constantly about meeting people where they're at. And, you know, we understand, even working here, that, like, this is such an emotional journey. There's no, you know, one way to success. So many people experience different things, and all of those things are okay, I think, as long as you find whatever way helps you to cope with all of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that healthy balance of, like, yeah, what works for you.
Yep. And I think, you know, I think we hit on a lot of good tools. Anything else you can think of?
There are some resources on CNY Fertility's on website, like mental health resources. Like, we have some resources for even, like, therapy that you can do remotely. And you know, like, I think there's even, like, some resources on, like, books and you know, lots of different resources for different things. Obviously, we talked about Fertile Hope Yoga. That's a great resource. So just really invite people to, you know, if you're seeking additional resources, you know, take advantage of those resources on our webpage, or reach out to us personally. Like, we can always, you know, you can reach us through our, like, Instagram DM, cnyfertility.com/fertilish, our webpage. There's a jot form there that you can, you know, be like, hey, like, do you have suggestions on this or that? And that comes directly to Brandis and I. And we can, you know, help kind of guide you in ways that we think that you might benefit from. If there's something specific that you would like to hear on the podcast in the future, that will help you, you know, please reach out to us as well. Like, we would love to hear from you. Yeah, but it doesn't have to be something that we announce on the podcast. If it's just like a one-on-one, like, we would love to help you, you know, kind of
Yeah.
in whatever ways that you need help.
Yeah. So yeah, like you said, you can always reach out to us, and I think this was good to kind of talk about. I feel like it's not talked about enough.
Absolutely.
And I'm excited to see you guys next week.
See you next week.